Okay, so I started recording. Let me share my screen and just kind of go over a few other reminders and interrupt me if you guys have questions. That's not what I wanted to show.
I'm Professor.
Yeah, go ahead. What's up? Who's that? Who's that?
Web, it's the fear. I was just trying to let you know that I'm having like an issue with my camera for some reason. Like on my earlier class, for some reason, I constantly like left the class and re-entered, but for some reason, only my audio is like working. Like my camera won't cut on. So do you mind like just excusing me and stuff like today?
Yeah, that's fine. Everyone remember, turn on your cameras if you can. But yeah, if you're having an issue, there's nothing you can do about it. Thanks for letting me know.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so a couple things. Just a couple reminders. One, remember the group tutoring I sent you. So make sure too, guys, when I send you emails or those announcements, make sure you read them. Usually they're reminders. And I expect that you guys read them and know what I put in them. I try to keep them short and concise. If for some reason you no, I sent an email and then you can't find it in your email, you can always go back to the announcements here on Moodle and you can see everything that I sent out. Okay, so just a reminder about that. I did just send you something about that told you guys I was working on the in-person lab schedule. Okay. So the way that I'm going to work that, so I just want to kind of update you. The information I was requesting was for those couple of students that are computer science, computer software engineering. They actually have a class conflict, so they know who they are. So it wasn't really meant for everyone. But the way what I'm going to do, and I'm looking at, you probably won't have to come live for lab until the week of September 14th. Okay. Because if we started next week, Monday is a holiday. I know technically we're still in class, but I didn't really want to start on that Tuesday. And it's anyway, the way the schedule works out, it probably works out better that way. So you're going to plan on being live for lab Tuesday. I guess that's the 15th. And then if you're in Thursday lab, you'll be there for Thursday. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. I will send like an email that clearly says, these students will be here on this date at this time. These students will be here on, on this date and this time. But basically what I'm going to do, the Tuesday lab students, I'm going to split you guys up into 2 sessions, right? So half of you guys will be there from 2 o'clock to 3:30, and then the other half will be 3:30 to 5. Okay, because remember our lab time is like that, and I'll probably just split it alphabetically. Okay, so I wanted to let you know what I'm thinking, what we're going to do, and when we're going to start that. Okay, we are going to meet, those of you that are in Tuesday lab today, we're going to meet today at 2 o'clock. Only if you're in Tuesday lab. If you're in Thursday lab, we will meet on Thursday at 2 o'clock. Okay, this allows me to have less students to go over just specifically our first lab. Okay, there's one sort of simple lab assignment, this metric system lab assignment, and I'll talk about that at 2 o'clock today and then on 2 o'clock on Thursday. Okay, so anything that you see here underneath this lab tab, I'll make sure I always explain what we're going to do. Some of that, remember, you'll be doing the live lab meeting. Okay. Does anyone have any questions just kind of about that off the bat?
Dr. Kuminska, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Relating to the lab assignment though, will the due dates be different due to the lab days?
No, like I usually will make them due. So for instance, I have this due by like 11:59 p.m. on Friday. So I'll usually give you like a whole nother week to do it. So I usually kind of keep the due dates the same, but I won't have it due that Tuesday. Like I said, I usually just give everyone till Friday. Does that make sense?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and for this one, it's very short. So everyone's is due like this Friday, but usually I'll give you a whole nother week. Okay. Any other questions, guys?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Here you are. It says we have a quiz on chapter 1 and 2 on Tuesday. Would that be?
That'd be what?
Would it be like September 8th, right? Because that's a Tuesday.
Correct.
Kind of confused on the way you said it.
What do you mean? Oh, why did I not say it was Tuesday?
It says oh right, I didn't see that on my thing. It didn't pop up. That's why.
Yeah. So, and the other thing is too, guys, a couple people are like, oh, this assignment was due. Just know that when I import, so when Moodle sets up, what it does is it like pulls information from the last time I did the course, and then it like automatically sets these due dates for 2020 for like the assignments moving ahead. And some of them are wrong, right? Some of them are wrong. So, and so that's why I always kind of send you guys reminders and tell you like what you need to worry about for this week. So it's really best to kind of stay focused on this week and next week and not really to look ahead too much. Okay. So like if you click on an assignment and it's something I never told you guys about and it's like due tomorrow, it's probably just a mistake in Moodle. It's totally fine to ask me and just be like, hey, is this due tomorrow? And probably be like, oh crap, that's just because I need to change that. So just know that, right? So like if something pops up on Moodle and says this is due, but I never told you about it, likely it's just because there's a due date that's messed up. You know, unfortunately, I have to manually go and change every single one. So sometimes I miss them. And I know there's ones that I need to change moving forward, okay? So stay focused on, you know, the week that we're in, right, on Moodle. Try not to get too far ahead. I mean, you can obviously look ahead if you want, but I think sometimes that just makes you a little more confused and then you start to get overwhelmed. Not worth it, right? Day by day, focus on, you know, the week that we're in. All right, does anyone have questions about that? I wanted to also bring that up because a couple questions came up like that. So I apologize, but I wish Moodle just didn't even reset the due dates, because then it would just say that it was like due in 2019 and you would know that it, you know, it wasn't reset, but unfortunately it does it automatically for some reason. Any questions, guys? How's everyone? We're all right. Well, you guys can all have a chance when I call, like I said, when I call you guys out for attendance, you're just going to share something about your scientific method assignment. And then if you have any other like questions or concerns or something, you know, about anything, let me know. I'll give you guys a chance to ask. It doesn't even have to be specific to this class, right? Because I feel like sometimes in the beginning of the semester, I do spend like, I don't know, like there might be 10 or 15 minutes that we're kind of just like talking about stuff, especially, you know, you guys as freshmen. And so I feel like maybe we can at least just spend a little bit of time on that. So also a reminder, your chapter 1-2 assignment is due Thursday. Okay. We will then, we'll probably review chapter 2, maybe even a little bit today, but we can review again on Thursday, because then, like somebody just asked, you guys have a quiz on Tuesday. Okay. So that quiz we're going to do right at the beginning of class, right at 12:30. All of you guys are going to log into Moodle. So please be prepared. Like you can't be, you know, on your phone, not really home and focused. You're going to be taking that quiz right at the beginning of class. Okay. Is that clear to everyone? Moving forward, there may be some quizzes that you just do on your own, but these first couple, we're going to be doing them right at the beginning of class, and then we will go over the answers together. Again, that's another review of the material. Okay. Does anyone have a question about that?
Dr. Kaminsky, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Relating to the review homework, do we submit it on Moodle or we just show it to you like what you said in the email?
No, I think I think in the email I said I was gonna ask you guys to show me your review sheet, right? But that's different than the homework. So there is no, you'll see there's no assignment for each time that you're taking notes on that review sheet. At the end, right before the exam, right? If I find it, it's here, this picture. So here I let you guys just like write even if you handwrite that, I'm okay with that. That's meant to just be a tool for you guys to have an outline, to be able to fill in the notes so that you know what I think are important topics, but you have to fill in the details.
So just to confirm, the assignment that we are submitting, are we submitting it on Moodle or
Correct.
we are?
Yep. Anything that you see like this, that's assignment here, you're submitting it on Moodle. Correct.
Okay. And that's the review sheet, right?
No, this is these questions.
That's this question. Okay, thanks.
Correct. It's different. Yeah. Like I said, the review sheet is just something kind of extra that's really meant just to be helpful as a tool. It's not, it's something that I sort of added in that we usually will do like in class kind of together. So once we start meeting in person, I'm going to tell you guys, bring your review sheets with you. You can kind of be writing in as maybe we're reviewing or going over the lecture. Okay. Does that make sense? So yeah. So the only time you're going to hand in that review sheet is right before the exam.
I have a question.
Yep.
I basically did my review sheet on like paper, so I did all my notes in a notebook. For you?
That's fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for the review sheet, that's fine. But for the homework questions, you need to type them up and submit them on Moodle. But for the review sheet, once it comes time to submit that, you can even just take a picture and submit those pictures. Like I said, it's not really, that's just meant to be a tool. If I don't check, then some people won't do it. So it's just meant to kind of keep you guys accountable. If that makes sense, okay?
Okay, so do I still have to do it on the review sheet to show you on the computer?
You will have to submit a picture of it. So even if it's just a picture of your notes, you'll be submitting that before the exam though, once you have all chapters 1 through 4 done.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
I have a question for the lab. Everybody is coming in for the lab for the 15th, 14th?
No, well, it's going to be split. So if you're in Tuesday lab, half of you guys will be coming at 2 o'clock. And then half of you guys will be coming at 3:30, just because of the space. I can't hold that many people in the lab at once. And I'll tell you guys that exactly. So like like I said, I'll put out a schedule that says the following students will be in lab on these dates at this time. The following students will be in lab, on these dates at this time. I'll have a whole schedule for you guys. I just wanted to give you a heads up so you knew kind of what I was thinking. So you be in lab essentially for like an hour or so.
Okay. And if you decided to choose remote, you're still required to come in, right?
If you choose remote, honestly, I really encourage you still to come to the lab for those few, as long as you're comfortable with it for those few live lab sessions. If it's really an issue, then I'm going to tell you guys once I put out the schedule to just contact me separately and we'll talk about it. Okay.
Okay.
Well, like I think I told you guys in the beginning, we'll work it out. Okay. But I do encourage that, but again, we'll figure it out. Okay. Like I said, I'll work with you guys individually. Those of you that aren't comfortable coming to lab at all. All right. Other questions, guys? Okay. So the other thing, and this kind of pertains to scheduling wise as well, as long as everything proceeds the way it's supposed to, right? We're supposed to have in person next week. Okay. Definitely. We will meet in person on Thursdays, okay? I may keep it that Tuesday is still a virtual day for everyone, but then Thursday's in person for those that choose in person, okay? So if you're choosing in person, plan on being in person on campus. And again, I'll confirm this with you guys by Friday. I don't want to put anything out there and then they change it on me. So I will put it in writing to tell you guys, all right, starting on this day, we'll be in person and where we're meeting, because they were still kind of changing around some of the locations. So again, I don't want to give you guys information and then have to change it. So what I'm thinking is that we'll definitely meet always in person on Thursday at 12:30 if you're choosing in person. Obviously, if you're choosing remote, you still can log in via Zoom. I'll have Zoom on, I guess. And then I may keep Tuesday as still a virtual day, but I'm still debating about that. Okay. But let's definitely, as long as we move to in person on Thursday next week, you'll have the ability to be in person, and I'll let you know what the location is and I'll confirm that with you guys. Okay. And then, like I said, moving forward, it may end up being both days, Tuesday and Thursday, but for now I know definitely Thursday next week, and then I'll let you guys know. Okay. Again, I don't want to give you a whole, like, everything right now and then they change it on me. So I just want to make sure we're definitely moving to that before I tell you guys that. Okay. So that's a heads up, because I know there's probably a lot of you guys. In fact, I started going through the list. I didn't go through everything, every single student yet in terms of who chose in person and who chose remote, but I'll have that done by the end of today. Okay. And then you'll see your first quiz grade from there. That's the story with that. Any questions about that, guys? No? Okay. All right. So I think kind of in terms of bookkeeping and kind of reminders, I think we're good. Again, remember, if you're in Tuesday lab, you're going to log in at 2 o'clock, obviously after we're done here, into the lab meetings up here. Okay. If you're in Thursday lab at 2 o'clock on Thursday, you're going to log into lab there. Okay. So we still probably will have some more virtual lab meetings. Okay. For today's one, it's probably not going to be that long. We just have kind of a short thing to go over. But sometimes it might be longer for those virtual meetings. But again, we take it week by week, okay? Don't get yourself all crazy and look ahead. That's not a good idea. In fact, it's best to just close your weeks up and just look at, you know, the few weeks or the week that we're in, okay? All right, guys. So like I said, I'm gonna call out names. I want you just to share something about your scientific method assignment. So maybe the first person that I call on from a group, maybe will just tell us kind of the topic and maybe one of the observations. Maybe the next person will tell us the hypothesis, what have you. So you may need to open up your assignment that you submitted so that you have that, okay, in front of you. You don't need to share your screen because that'll take too long, but just tell us something about it. All right, and then like I said, we shall move on from there. All right, so let me stop my share and let me pull up self-serve so that I can be taking attendance. Actually, you know what? It's probably faster if I just do it this way. All right, okay. All righty. All right, so I'm just gonna go by my grid here. And so who's on the top left? I have Brad on the top left there.
So my group, we had, hang on, where'd it go?
Ed.
There it is. We said for our problem, we said how certain types of food coloring and excessive amounts can affect bacteria within the human digestive system.
Okay. All right. So maybe leave it at that. So the idea is food coloring that's in obviously things that you eat, and then potentially it affecting the bacteria that are normally present in your body, in your GI tract. Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. Now I have Kiara next. You're next in line here.
Hi. So my group had the effect of caffeine intake on teens before bed.
Okay. All right, good. I remember. So I remember talking to most of you guys. All right, we'll leave it at that. So yeah, you're looking at the effects of caffeine kind of on sleep essentially, yeah? Okay. All right. So like I said, I give you guys, if there's anything else or any other question you guys have, ask, okay? While I kind of have each one of you individually here. 1 second, let me mark you off that you are here. I have Hannah next.
Our group chose bipolar depression.
All right. You want to stay more? You're going to leave it to the next person.
I guess I can do one observation.
One observation. Yep.
Patients who are bipolar often suffer from sleep deprivation.
Okay. Good. All right. We got another sleep related issue here. All right. Let me mark you off. All right. Next, Leisha.
I also had the caffeine intake one. So our hypothesis, if a person drinks a caffeinated drink before bed, they will sleep less.
Okay. All right, good. So that was one of your observations, right? Cool. All right. I have here, I'll tell you who's up next so you can get yourself, Valeria, you're next. 1 second. Let me mark Leisha off though. All right, go ahead.
So we did mental health with social media.
Okay, so that was your topic. So why don't you give one observation that you put down?
How the teenagers try to fit with all they see on social media and
Okay.
they get stressed.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you. Anthony, you're gonna be next, but let me just, you have a minute while I mark Valeria as here. Okay, Anthony Lane, what you got?
We had the effects of brain cancer was on stage 2 as our scientific topic.
Okay, what was one of your observations?
If medical marijuana can like be used to ease like the pain of brain cancer and help de-stress the patient.
Okay. All right, so that's more of your kind of like your question, right? remember, I think I kind of taught you guys. So like for the observations, guys, remember it can be like super simple. It could just be something like, you know, I don't know, that patients are prescribed medical marijuana, or brain cancer patients are prescribed medical marijuana, right? And then you're kind of going from there, because now your question is kind of like, all right, well, how effective is it? Okay, so remember, just kind of keep those simple.
Okay.
All right, good, thanks. Vanessa Price, you're next, but let me just mark Anthony off. Give me a second. Okay, Vanessa.
I'm in Anthony's group, so I'll say the hypothesis.
Okay.
I said medical marijuana can be used to treat brain cancer.
All right, good, right? Remember the hypothesis, again, same thing,
Right.
as being simple, right? A simple statement. And then
Right.
now the next person in your group will tell us sort of how you guys decided to test that hypothesis. All right, thanks. All right, who's next? Oh, Moses.
My topic was gravitational force, and the one observation was that when we throw a stone upwards, it lands quicker on the ground.
Okay, that's true. Pretty, right? That's an observation I'm sure that all of us have had, but yeah. All right, cool. All right, Wilberto.
The topic for my group was like different ways to clean up oil spills.
Okay. All right. You want to give one observation?
Observation was hold on, wait. Using the use of cotton cleans up oil spills.
Okay. All right, cool. Leave it at that, and we'll get the next person for more. All right, thanks. Itzel. What you got? Oh, I can't hear you. I don't know why. It says you're not muted. Sometimes it does something, it's weird. All right, don't worry about it. I'll skip over you. I guess you got off the hook, but you might want to log out and log back in. That's happened to students before. I don't know why it does that, even though it says you're not muted, unless it says it on your end. I don't know. All right, okay. All right, Erica, you're next.
Yes, I was in Hannah group with bipolar depression.
Okay.
One of our observation was that people that have bipolar depression mostly have moderate to high levels of stress.
Okay. All right, good. All right, you want to say one more observation, or you're going to leave that? How many people were in your group? 4?
Yes, 4 of us.
All right, then we'll leave it for the next 2. All right, cool. Thanks, Erica. Zoel.
I was in Moses's group.
Okay.
So another observation from ours was that we realized that gravity has a different effect on objects with either a heavier or lighter
Okay.
mass.
Perfect. All right. Good. Zoel, remind me of your last name.
Bennett.
Thank you. All right. Who's next? Jocelyn.
My group was the one with bipolar. Patients with bipolar often suffer from sleep deprivation, and our experiment was to perform an EEG on the patient during sleep, or
Okay.
to do
Go ahead.
Or to do
So, all right. So then, what would be your 2 groups? Like, what would be your, right? You usually, if we're designing an experiment, we got to think about like a control group and an experimental group. So in your experiment, what would be your 2 groups?
I guess a patient with bipolar and then another one without bipolar.
All right, good. And so you would have them hooked up to EEG. So what does EEG measure?
The sleeping, like the brain activity.
Yeah, it just measures the brain activity, electrical activity in the brain. And so yeah, if you may, so no, I'll leave it to somebody else to kind of what might expect next. Thanks, Jocelyn. All right, who's next? Where are we? Kier.
I was in the group with the caffeine that teens have, the effect on caffeine that the effect on teens that I don't even know the effect on caffeine teens have before bed. One thing we said was it makes their sleep timing. It disrupts their sleep and they won't be able to sleep for a long period of time.
Okay. What did you guys maybe start with? How many more people in your group? You still have 2 more?
Yes.
All right. Well, maybe one more observation. Did we have 2 more observations yet? What was one of your other observations?
It was. Wait, I have to open the document. I'm having technical issues with my computer right now, so I can't really log onto the Moodle website.
All right. Well, we'll come back to you if we need extra info. All right. Next, Rick.
I had the group with brain cancer and medical marijuana.
Okay.
An experiment I thought of is get 2 patients with brain cancer and give one like other medication and give the other patient medical marijuana and see the differences.
Okay. All right. What kind of differences do you mean? What would you be measuring or observing, I guess, in those 2 patients?
Like if medical marijuana helps ease like the brain tension.
Yeah, you got to think about, so sometimes it becomes a little difficult, like depending on what your hypothesis was and what your topic is. If it's super complicated, once you get to the experiment, it might be a little tough to kind of figure out, well, what could I actually measure, right? And if you're talking about medical marijuana, usually it's prescribed for what? To alleviate what symptom, I guess?
Like, wouldn't it be used to like alleviate anxiety and stuff?
Yeah, and pain, right? So you could just do something like, maybe you had the patient fill out a questionnaire or grade their pain level or something like that, right? So I guess the point is, the reason why I'm doing this with you guys is because when you're thinking about the experiment, you got to think about you got to have like a control group and an experimental group, but you also have to have something concrete that you're going to measure, right? And that you can see if it changes. And so anyway, I'll probably go back to the end of the chapter review, but there's things like independent variables and dependent variables. So there's some terminology that kind of goes along with what you guys are doing here that you can kind of fit into it, right? But even just thinking about it conceptually, you got to think, if you're doing an experiment, you got to be able to measure something. But it could be like a questionnaire. It could be something like that. That's fine. It doesn't actually have to be like taking brain tissue or something like that, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks. All right, I got you already. Who's next? Michaela.
So I was in a group that did how social media affects the mental health of teenagers. I'm gonna do the observation. The observations was that it caused teens to have more anxiety and make them feel like they have to fit in to be a part of the community.
Okay, so this is how social media affects mental health, essentially, right? Okay. All right. You have another observation?
Yeah.
What is it?
The rates of suicide from social media have increased tremendously.
Okay, good. That's an observation. All right, cool. All right. Cool, we'll leave it at that. I think you still have one more group member that can add to that. So next is Joshua.
I was in a group with Brad, and we were talking about excessive amounts of food coloring. Okay. And an observation is that more factories are adding food coloring to their products and to food today.
Okay, good. So there's more of those food colorings around. So, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Joshua, remind me of your last name.
Ineria with an I.
Thank you. All right, Gina, you're next.
So I was in the group with bipolar depression, and our hypothesis was that people with bipolar depression have an active brainwave, which causes sleep deprivation.
Okay. All right, wait. So we were already at the experimental part, weren't we, with the last person?
Yeah, but the
Yeah. Oh, so okay. So you said. So what did you say? That was your prediction, kind of.
Yeah, people with bipolar depression have an active brainwave.
Okay, right. So you would see more activity in those patients with bipolar depression than you would in your control group and in those that didn't. Okay. All right, good. And then obviously, sometimes when you do your experiment, you may not always get what you expect, right? And so that's why you do an experiment. All right, cool. But that's a good prediction. All right, Hira, you're next.
I was in a group with the food coloring.
Okay.
And our hypothesis was food coloring has no effect on human digestive system.
All right, cool. You still have one more group. You still have somebody left. There was only 3.
I think there was. I'm not sure. It was probably 4 of us. I forgot. But I can do the experiments.
All right. Well, so why don't you say one experiment?
One experiment is like what we had was giving having different 3 individuals intake different food colorings, color food colorings, and for a week, and observing their behaviors and everything, they're if they're having problem eating, and specifically it's going to be 30 ml each. We just made up a number, so
okay, that's fine. No, that's good. You want to give the same amount to everyone, right? All right, and so all right, fine, we'll leave it at that, but maybe you're asking them if they have any stomach symptoms or something like that. I don't know, right? You gotta again think about what you're gonna measure, right?
Yeah, I wasn't. We weren't thinking about that, so that should be one of that, just knowing beforehand, what their health is. That would also play a role in this. So yeah.
Yep. All right. Good. Okay. Cool. Thanks, Katia.
So I wasn't here, but I did it on homeless people and the mental health problems.
Okay.
One of my observations were that people who are homeless are 17 times more likely to have been victims of violence.
Okay. And then what else? Do you have another observation? Since it's only you got to tell us the whole thing then, I guess.
All right. So another observation I did was, actually I only did one because I couldn't.
Okay, that's fine. Then what do you have for your hypothesis?
For my hypothesis, I put to solve it in 2 ways: a political form and personal. So my experiment was for the personal to have them go through keep the shelters, make them go through mental facilities, examine them to see where they stand and what other help they might need.
Okay, so go back to the hypothesis. Remember the hypothesis, guys. Again, this is sometimes hard for us to kind of understand what exactly the hypothesis is. Remember, it's just a statement about, you guys came up with a scientific topic or whatever. It's a statement based on observation that you then can test, right? So for Katia, for yours, it might, your hypothesis could just be that, and it really kind of depends on what you want to test, but it could just be that the homeless population has an increased, or the homeless population might exhibit more mental health issues, right? Or pick something more specific that you then can kind of measure. So whatever your hypothesis is, your experiment then has to be designed to actually test that, right? So, I mean, it could be, I don't know. So just kind of think about that it has to just be some sort of statement that then is testable. And it's just a simple statement, okay? Everyone kind of, that's why we do this, because you kind of like think that the hypothesis, I guess, is more than it is, but that's really all it is. It's just a simple statement. Okay. All right. Well, good, Katya. I won't make you say any more. Okay. All right, Alex, you're next.
So I was in the group with with social media doing like mental causing mental illness.
Okay.
So the experiment, like we would like do like we'll let the teens like do like a 3 months experience with social media, and then like give them a survey.
Okay. Give them a survey to ask about kind of like their state, like mental state.
Yes.
Okay. And there are surveys out there. Actually, my students, I had a couple students that did for their independent research project. They actually did well, they took saliva and they were measuring some hormone levels, but then they also did a questionnaire like about, there's anxiety questionnaires, like they're not meant to be diagnostic, but they're meant to kind of assess your sort of state of mind, like at that one point, and then also kind of look at your just innate sort of I guess, sort of feelings and how those might be anxiety like. All right, so you can use something like that. All right, Alizea, you're next.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
So we did the topic of brain issue. I was with Vanessa, Rick, and Anthony, I think. I don't really remember what are you missing about it, but I have some observations.
Okay. Well, we're probably onto the experiment now. Where we end up?
I think so. I don't know, but we used marijuana to treat brain cancer. It can treat headaches, because brain cancer like you can get a lot of headaches from it. I mean, you could also treat anxiety and brain issues.
All right. So we were talking about what you would measure, right? And we said maybe you would ask people about their pain scale, even in terms of a headache, or how many headaches they had in the last. But what's something else you can measure then?
Anxiety, like how is it, like are you better, like are you this?
Okay, so you can use like that questionnaire that I sort of mentioned, something like
maybe that. Like their stress, like are you still stressed, or is it a little bit better?
Okay. All right, cool, thanks. All right, Mia, you're next.
Hi, so I wasn't here, so I did concussions for my topic.
Okay.
And what I did was for my observation, I did patients who have a history of concussions are also prone to more head injuries in the future.
Okay.
And then I also said that many patients are at risk for developing dementia and early onset Alzheimer's later in life. So my hypothesis was that individuals with multiple head injuries lead to the development of these diseases.
Okay.
And then for the experiment, it was kind of like confusing on how to do it.
Yeah. So
now that I'm hearing.
Yeah. Yours is complex. So think about one specific thing that you could maybe do. What do you think?
So I was thinking that maybe observe like a group of young people from impact sports like football or gymnastics, things like that, who have had a history of concussions, and get brain scans or whatever it's called.
MRI.
MRIs over a period of 5 years, once every year, and see how their brain is looking and stuff. I don't know exactly.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that works, right? So you pick something that you could measure. It's basically looking at the brain scans. I will tell you though, with concussions and like mild traumatic brain injury, you can't pick up anything with an MRI. That's the problem, right? There's really no imaging technique that can tell you that there's an issue, right? And so one of the things that people are looking for now, even like to be like doing this like on the field, are like biomarkers that maybe you could even just get a quick like even a saliva sample where there might be an increase in some sort of molecule that could tell you, an injury. So that's not an easy experiment to set up, just so you know.
Okay.
All right, cool, thanks. Steen, next.
I was in the caffeine group, and then for one of my observations, the other group that didn't drink the caffeine tend to have more sleep.
Okay, all right, good. That works in terms of kind of, that's your prediction, I guess, right? From the experiment. All right, cool. All right. Who did I miss here? Oh, I see where we are. Isaiah, or is it Isaias? How do you say it? I feel like I'm saying it wrong.
It's Isaiah or Isaias.
Oh, well, which one do you prefer?
I don't really mind.
Okay. All right. What do you got?
So we did scientific method on oil spills,
Okay.
but while I was doing it, Zoom kicked me out, so I didn't really get much, but I got an observation, which is a paper towel material could also clean up an oil spill.
Okay. Then what would be your experiment? I mean, even though you got kicked out, you still have to submit the assignment.
Yeah,
on your own, right?
yeah. I'll finish it. I'll finish after class.
Okay. All right. Uracil, you're next.
I'm also with oil spills, so I'm gonna be saying the experiment to test our hypothesis.
Okay.
So, we say that we create a blanket with a material like paper
Oh, wait,
towel.
one second, Uracil. Somebody else isn't muted. Make sure you're muted, guys, because I hear some background noise. It's just come.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm in the doctor.
Oh, is that you?
me.
Okay, no, then don't worry. You're all right. Just talk louder. Go ahead.
Okay, so we say we create a blanket with a material like paper towel or cotton and start doing the process to clean the water.
Okay.
And we will be experimenting which material works the best.
Okay, and so how were you, like, again, what are you going to measure? You're just going to look at how much oil is left or something like that? Like the amount of oil or something?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So again, when you're designing these things, think about, you have to come up with something that you can measure reliably, right? All right, cool. Thank you. All right. Jason.
It's not loading on my screen, but I do remember one observation that we had.
Okay.
I believe I'm in the group with Alicia about the caffeine intake.
Okay.
People who drink caffeine regularly will struggle with, I think, with their energy well. If they don't have it in their system, they will struggle like if they don't have it in their system. So people who drink caffeine regularly will struggle if they don't take it as in like a day or something.
Okay. But now that's kind of off topic from the, well, that's fine if that was one of your other observations, but then your hypothesis chose to focus on the sleep issue, right? Remember, keep things specific and simple, because if you don't, then it becomes hard to come up with an experiment because you kind of have a couple different things going on. All right. Well, so yeah, that's fine. But then your experiment would be different if you kind of came up with a hypothesis based on that, right? Because you're not talking about sleep then at that point. All right. I think we're almost, Saphir.
I was in the group with the food discoloration. So one of our observations was that there was an increase in food allergies due to artificial food coloring.
Okay. Oh, so you said food allergies?
Yes, food coloring. Well, food allergies, yes, for the increase.
Okay, so then again, if that was, so then how would you kind of measure that, or how would you find out if that's true? I guess, what, I don't know, something simple.
Probably take people's knowing people's background history, like their medical history and things like that, and see if there's any change in that.
Yeah, actually that's good. And you bring up a good point, right? You could do a study where if you had access to medical records, right? You could just look at medical records too. There's lots of studies like that, especially within the veterans healthcare system. There are a lot of that's a lot of data mining, right? To get these medical records and look at different, things like that. So you can do an experiment that way. You don't actually have to have, an experimental group or be doing sort of a live study. It could be something like that. So something like that with the food allergies, you could look back and just look at medical records. Yeah. And then ask them about their diet maybe, and then look back at their medical records to see what issues they had. Okay, cool. You have anything to add?
No, I like what you said. I like how you worded that.
Well, thanks. All right, so here, I don't know if people got shuffled around here, so let me just go by my list just to see who's here again. Remember, I'm taking attendance. Maria? All right. Elizabeth? Yeah. Catherine?
Here.
You're here? All right.
Yeah.
What do you got?
So my group was the group with Valeria, and we had the whole social media of how it affects teenagers.
Okay.
Our experiment will be having 6 teenagers, 3 of them with social media accounts and 3 of them without for 2 months, and then have them take a survey about their mental health.
Okay, good. That's good. That's a nice, simple experiment and has a clear kind of, outcome that you're measuring. All right, good job. Okay, I got you. Oh, Itzel, you already did go, and I forgot to mark you. Oh no, is Jeffrey here? That's what I did. I can't read the line. That's who's missing. Okay, and Angelica. And Amir. All right. We are finally done with that. Don't worry, I won't make you guys do this all the time. But I think it's important to give you guys a chance to like talk and say something. And like I said, going through that exercise is important because it makes you think about science, obviously, also sort of demonstrates some, points of the scientific method. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why we go, why I spent so much time on that, okay? All right, like I said, if you didn't hand in that assignment, make sure it's handed in by the end of today, okay, guys? All right, so let's move on. Let me share, somebody's zooming back in here. I'm gonna share my screen and let me go and just pull up, I guess, the PowerPoint just quickly. I guess maybe I'll also kind of just introduce chapter 2. So I'm gonna pull up both chapter 1 and chapter 2. Oh, I think I told you guys this. Chapter 1, remember there's review packets for every chapter here. So if you open that chapter 1 review, there are review questions, multiple choice questions. And those are good questions to go over because some of them are similar to questions that you might see. Actually, maybe we just do this. We'll just look at this in terms of, I won't pull up the whole PowerPoint on chapter 1. I kind of already reviewed chapter 1, okay? So I'm not gonna go through and review it again. Remember guys, it is your responsibility to listen to the recorded lectures, okay? It's just like I would be lecturing in class, but I'm sort of giving you guys the freedom of doing it on your own so that you can listen at your own pace, you can take notes, you can pause and all those good things. If you do not listen to the recorded lectures and take notes on them, you're not gonna do well on the exam, okay? So again, they're not just there for extra, they're there because you need to listen to them, okay guys? So just make sure, just a word of caution, make sure you're listening to them. And obviously things get more complicated as we move on, right? First chapter is pretty simple. All right, so we were just kind of going over our scientific method, right? And so if you guys look over here in terms of the sort of the review. So if you look at the review, it's gonna summarize I meant to say summary, not review. It's gonna, sorry, let me hang that up. It's gonna summarize each section of the chapter, right? And so we were just going over, generating a hypothesis, right? You guys made your own observations. You came up with an experiment. Talks a little bit about like good experimental design. And I kind of talked to you guys about it in terms of specifically of what you guys told me, right? Remember, you always have to have an experimental group or some experimental variable and a control group. So how many experimental variables do you think you should have in a given experiment? 3?
3 or more.
Experimental variables?
1.
Simple, right? If you have too many, when you go to look at your effect that you're measuring, how would you know which experimental variable is responsible for your effect, right? You really can only test one at a time. Now you may do multiple experiments, but it's really just one, okay? So you're only gonna have one thing that's gonna change. For some of you guys, like that may mean, right, you have a healthy group versus a group that sustained, a concussion, right? Or a group that did not have a concussion and a group that did, okay? The one variable is the concussion, right? Okay, so remember, I got to keep it simple. The last part of the chapter, and I go through this in the recorded lecture, there's some data. Go ahead, you have a question?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what is the response variable then?
Say it again.
The response variable. What is it?
What do you
actually?
mean?
Because I meant that, so I was going through the video, but I still couldn't get what, because I understand what the experimental variable is, but I do not still get the response variable.
Okay.
While I was going through the review questions you gave, it says the response variable, and
Oh,
it's a
was
bit
it on
confusing.
that question? Wait, on those review questions that I just pulled up?
Yes.
All right, let me look.
No,
So,
wait, let me see.
or was it in the lecture?
No, I meant for the review package for chapter 1.
Okay, that I just had up.
Yes.
All right, let's look. So that's the reason why I say look at some of those questions, because sometimes the wording that they use in the questions here in the multiple choice might be different, slightly different than maybe the
No,
terminology. Go ahead.
it's not this one. It's basically the other one for the exam.
Which one? What do you mean? What question?
I think it's a Word document form. You gave us like a template that we should build on with our guide notes.
Oh, the
Something like
outline?
that.
Okay, I
Yeah,
got
the
you. The
outline.
study. Yeah. Okay, let me pull that up. The review sheet, right? Like the exam 1 review sheet that I was telling. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I missed that. Let me pull that up.
I mean, those are the ones that we will be presenting on Thursday, right?
You're not going to be presenting anything on Thursday. On Thursday, what's due is this assignment here, chapter 1 and 2, these homework questions.
But I mean, just to go over, you sent us an email talking about you'll be checking up.
Yeah, that was the review sheet. Correct. Yep. Yeah, I'll show you
So,
that. Go ahead.
So that's basically what the guide notes that we're doing, right? Or it is the questions. That's the guide notes we're doing right now, right?
Yeah, this review sheet, right? The exam 1 review sheet here, right? That's the outline. Yeah, that's all the topics that are going to be in the exam. And right, you're writing notes on that as you listen to the lectures. Yeah. And I did say I would have you guys share. I may not have you guys share the screen. You will have to hand that in though, but just because I feel like it might take too long for each of us to share screen. But here, let me go to your question though. Oh, here. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. So the experimental variable or the independent variable is the one that doesn't change. So that's kind of like when you're picking your groups, right? So that's like concussion or not, if you go back to my example, right? The responding variable or dependent variable is really going to be what you're measuring. So if for that concussion thing, it's MRI, you could say the dependent variable would be like an abnormal MRI scan. If we're talking about like, some of us were talking about like social media, right? And anxiety, okay? The independent variable is whether you're on social media or not. The responding or the dependent variable is anxiety, right? Because that's what's going to change. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Yeah.
So the dependent variable is again what's changing in your experiment, kind of what you're measuring, okay? So when I said you have to kind of figure out something that you're measuring, it's what's going to change.
Okay, thank you very much.
You got it. And thank you for asking. So that's what I mean. It's good to just, go through this. And if you didn't have this in front of you, you may not really have like thought about it. And so obviously if I'm writing this down, then I expect that you guys know that. Now I will tell you for the scientific method, since I had you guys go through all of this and then I made you guys present it, right? Sometimes on the exam, I may ask you just an open-ended question that's kind of just like what I had you guys do. So there's not really one right or wrong answer. It's, give me a hypothesis and give me an experiment, because it's more about understanding rather than pulling, things up. I also could show you a graph. So I said I wasn't going to pull up the PowerPoint, but let me just do it real quick, because I don't, again, I go through this in the recorded lecture, so make sure you listen to it. But I might show you a graph with some data and then ask you a question about about the data, right? Like maybe what's the dependent variable, what's the independent variable, things like that. Okay, so those are some things to kind of be aware of. It's slow. All right, let me also get chapter 2 going here. Okay, so are there any other questions, I guess, on chapter 1 that you guys can think of? Again, it's good to, every time you come to class, have that review sheet in front of you, maybe with questions that you wrote down. Remember too, at the group tutoring sessions, you can ask questions as well. Let me just pull up, chapter 1's up now. Let me just pull up like kind of what I was just talking about in terms of the data example. So remember, characteristics of life. We talked about the levels of biological organization, right? Talked a little bit about natural selection, but not anything crazy. All right, and then the last part was what we were talking about here. So, so meaning like showing you a graph like this, okay, and asking you sort of what this is showing you, or I could even just ask you like some simple question like, you know, in what week were the blood cholesterol levels the highest, right? Okay, I mean, from this graph, you can't, you know, I would have to give you more information about an experiment if I was going to ask you more detailed questions, okay? If you look at the other example that they give you here in the book, make sure you listen to my explanation going through this. So this kind of shows you a hypothesis, right? The experiment that they performed. It's showing you kind of the whole process here, right? Let me move this and let me make this bigger. 1 second. I'm just going to put the show on so you can actually see what it says. Right? So, you know, it's basically showing you the hypothesis, it's showing the experiments that they did, then collecting the data, right? Kind of showing you the whole scientific hypothesis here. And this is really involving the different antibiotics in the treatment of ulcers, right? So I could, again, show you this and ask you questions about this experiment. So in terms of, you know, what they're testing, I mean, in terms of like sort of the independent variable, it's antibiotic, right? It's antibiotic A or B. That's not going to change that set. And then what's changing, the dependent variable, is essentially the percent of ulcers that they see, okay? Or something like that, right? So that's just another example in terms of sort of answering your question.
And also, I have another question relating to the control. Could you further explain that one to us as well?
Relating to what? Sorry, say it again.
Control.
Control? Yeah. Right. So, okay. So in this case, right, if we're talking about control, you can see here it says the control group received the placebo. So sometimes the control can just be a group that you do nothing to. Sometimes though, depending on what your treatment is, right, because they're receiving a pill, this control group has to receive something. So placebo, what does placebo mean? Why is that a good control, I guess?
Kind of like nothing.
Yeah.
It kind of really doesn't have an effect.
Right. So, I mean, actually, maybe placebo is not the best word here, but regardless, so they're going to get a pill, these two groups, antibiotic A and antibiotic B. The control group is just going to receive like a pill that has nothing in it. Maybe it's like just like a sugar pill or something like that, because they're still then taking it. Why? You ever hear of placebo effect? What's that?
It's when someone thinks they're receiving help, but it's kind of just in their head.
Yeah. So like if we saw that this group down here actually had, and I mean, it's kind of weird because this is really like a biological measure, but if it was something that was a more like subjective measure, you actually could see that your placebo group or your control group actually had the same, you know, increase in or same, what's the word I'm trying to think of? I don't know, same like alleviation of symptoms or something like that because of, right, they think they're getting the treatment and then therefore their symptoms seem to get better. So anyway, that's why for here, this control group is a placebo, they're receiving a pill. But really the control group is sort of the normal group, the group that isn't receiving a drug or the group that didn't have a concussion, right? That's what we mean by control. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have another question. So why does it basically exist though? Why does the control group exist?
Because you need to, good question, right? Why? Because if you just had antibiotic A and antibiotic B groups, how would you know how effective it was if you didn't have a group that received nothing to compare it to?
Oh, okay.
Right? you wouldn't even have anything here, and then you would just have this. You wouldn't be able to interpret that, right? You wouldn't know what it meant in terms of how effective it is. That make sense?
So basically, some doctors gives us placebo.
Go ahead. What'd you say?
So certain doctors, let's say that they give us just pills to just see if they will really work, supposed to work. I don't know how to explain it though.
What do you mean? Like you go to a doctor as a patient?
So the doctors that give us placebo, they are actually doctors. Placebo pills. So confused right there. So don't mind me.
I say it again. I'm not really sure I understand your question.
Okay. So the placebo pills, they actually give it to us.
Yeah, well, no. So this is meaning if you're doing an experiment, right? Like if you're a clinical researcher, you're setting up an experiment, you need to have this control group. Like I think that was Moses who just asked that, right? Why do you have the control group? You need to compare, right, to your experimental group. And so normally a doctor wouldn't give you a placebo, right? Although there could be cases where somebody might do that. If a psychiatrist might suspect that it's something that drugs aren't going to help, I don't know. But for the most part, that would be unethical to give a patient a placebo without telling them. It pretty much would be, right? So this is just more like in the experimental sense. Does that make sense? If you were setting up some sort of experiment as either a clinical researcher or as a basic science researcher, you would always need to have a control group. And sometimes that's giving a placebo. So for instance, if I do an experiment like this, say in an animal model, and I was injecting a drug into a certain group of mice or rats, I would have to also inject saline into my controls, right? That would be we call it a vehicle or whatever, but it's basically controlling for the actual injection. Right? So here, when we have this control group that's actually taking the pill, you're controlling for the fact that perhaps just by taking the pill, you might feel better, right? But we want to know about the effectiveness just actually of the drug. Okay?
So I have a question. So just to confirm, all experiments must have all the 3 variables?
You don't have to have 3. You could just have 1 test group and 1 control group.
Okay.
Yeah? But I see what you're saying. This sort of, I know what you're saying because of how it's written on the review sheet. It says dependent variable and independent variable and then control, right? I guess kind of the control and the independent variable can kind of be kind of together, kind of you can consider them together. Sort of.
Okay.
They're not necessarily 3 separate things. I see why you're asking that. Okay. All right. Any other questions, guys? All right, let me, we only have a few minutes left. So let me just go to chapter 2. Again, if you haven't listened to chapter 2, make sure you do. Let me just kind of introduce what that is. I mean, essentially that's just a very basic chemistry introduction. Those of you that are in chemistry, you may already have gone over some of this stuff, but that's essentially what this chapter is. So, right? So we talk about the different elements, right? That are basically 6 elements that make up about 95% of the body, right? There are other elements as well, but these are the 6 that primarily compose of the body. So you should be aware of these elements. And then we talk, I talk a lot about atoms and, protons, neutrons, electrons, and we talk about, atomic number, right? And atomic mass number. So make sure you're familiar with all these. And so maybe on Thursday, we'll review it a little bit more. Oops, sorry. And did I not share my screen? 1 second, that's my fault. So here, right? Talking about protons, neutrons, electrons. I'm sure you guys have heard this before, probably even maybe in high school, but like I said, if you're in chemistry, but we should know the difference between atomic number, right, and mass number, okay, what that means, right? So if you look here, right, and if you look at nobody needs to memorize any parts of the periodic table or anything like that. In fact, in chemistry, I'm pretty sure nobody makes you do stuff like that anymore. But if you looked at the periodic table, right, and you looked at the elements, you need to know what it's telling you, right? So you have the atomic symbol here. right, for carbon. And then the number up here is the mass number, and the number down here is the atomic number, okay? And so again, we should know what that is, right? So atomic number is the number of protons, right? And then mass number is the number of protons and neutrons. Okay, so if you know the mass number and the atomic number, you can figure out the number of neutrons, right? How come when we talk about atomic number and mass number, or atomic mass, however you want to say it, how come we don't consider the electrons?
Because their mass is kind of irrelevant.
Yep, their mass is negligible. Okay, so when we're talking about mass, we're only considering protons and neutrons. However, you talk a lot about electrons, or you consider electrons a lot in organic chemistry, in biology, because in terms of how these elements are going to join together to form molecules, it's dependent on those electrons. And particularly the number of electrons where, guys?
In the valence shell?
In the valence shell, right. In the outermost shell. So the number of electrons in that outermost shell, or that valence shell, is going to dictate how the element behaves chemically, right? Again, what kinds of bonds does it form? What other molecules does it form bonds with, okay? Or other elements does it form bonds with, right? So, so the last part of the chapter, we talk more about molecules and compounds. And again, remember that's dependent really on the number of electrons in that valence shell, okay? So again, if we talk about, you know, a molecule, right? If you saw this, what does this mean, right? 6 atoms of carbon, 12 atoms of hydrogen, 6 of oxygen. What molecule is that?
Carbon dioxide.
What's the name for that? Glucose. Good. Okay. So, and then, yeah, I mean, you can, again, there's some other ones that you probably know about, right? Carbon dioxide, water, obviously. Okay. But yeah, that's glucose. Super important molecule in biology. Okay. So those are kind of, again, if you haven't listened, you need to listen to it, take your notes on the review sheet, and also complete those homework questions. So remember, the homework assignment for chapters 1 and 2 is due on Thursday. And I'll review more of chapter 2 if necessary to get you guys ready for the quiz on Tuesday. All right, so you really should be caught up in that you really spend some time with chapters 1 and 2 by Thursday. Right, so we talked about different bonds, what have you. Anyone have any questions right now?
Dr. Kaminsky?
Yeah,
relating to summation of assignments 1 and 2, can I do it in a separate PDFs?
You can. I mean, that's what you're going to have to do. I mean, you can download rewrite the questions, or write out number 1, 2, 3, write it out, and then you're going to submit that separate file. Does that make sense? Yeah, because you can't write it right in here. So if you guys click on the assignment, right?
No, I meant that since it is like chapter 1, the first section is chapter 1 and the second section is chapter 2, I could do chapter 1 in one PDF and chapter 2 in another PDF.
You can. You can.
Because you said maximum number of pages should be 1.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna, but you're probably gonna be able to fit this all on one page. But yeah, whatever. Either way. Yep, either way is fine. Okay, I'll make sure that the settings it will take multiple files. All right, guys. So we're done. So in 15 minutes, those of you that are in Tuesday lab should be logging in, remember, to the lab meeting. Okay, don't use the same link for class. Use the lab link. Okay. If anyone has any other questions, I'll stay on. But otherwise,
so the assignment we had to turn in today, I got to send it as a PDF, but through your email. I didn't send it through Moodle. Is that okay?
You have to put it through Moodle. Yeah, you have to put it through Moodle. You have to click on the assignment and upload through Moodle. That's the way I grade everything. Everything has to be in through Moodle.
All right,
You can't email.
Okay, I will do that now. But you didn't receive the email?
Yeah. I think so, but anyway, submit it. You have until the end of the day. I won't look at them until tomorrow, okay? So just make sure you submit it through Moodle. I won't penalize you for being, if anyone didn't submit it and you're like, or you're an hour late or whatever, don't worry about it. I'm not going to take off points, okay? But we need to kind of just be aware. But yeah, submit it through Moodle. Everyone has to submit everything through Moodle.
Regarding her question, so if we upload it as a document from Google, would you be able to see it, or does it come?
It doesn't. So sometimes I can. So if you want to try it that way for this first assignment, you can. For whatever reason, sometimes it gives me trouble. I'm not able to see it, and it converts it to this RTF file automatically, and then I'm not able to read it. So the safest bet is really to upload either a Word document or a PDF. So if you do it in Google Docs, I think you can then download it as a PDF and then just upload it from there.
Okay, because I put it as Google Docs, so I don't know if you'll be able to see it. So can you
Leave it. Yeah, leave it for now. When I go through and grade, I'll write you a message saying I can't view your file. Okay, so don't worry about resubmitting it now. I'll let you know. All right,
Dr. Community, just to let you know, I've sent you the email relating to what you asked for.
Okay, thank you. Yes, anyone who has that class conflict, make sure you email me independently. Yeah, everyone else, you guys can get off. If you're in lab on Tuesday, you're gonna log back in at 2 o'clock on the lab Zoom link. It's on the Moodle page. Okay, guys? So I'll see everyone in Tuesday lab in a few minutes.
Have a good day, miss.
Thanks, Professor.
Take care, guys.
I have a question about the lab.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
Lab till 3 today, or is it going to be shorter?
No, it's shorter. We probably be done around like 2:30.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right, thank you.
I have a question.
Yep.
So if we want to do lab in person, can we do like the lecture like on remote, or we have to do both in person?
No, if you're choosing, that's why I told you guys, that's why I gave you those 3 questions, kind of asking you about
Like,
lab.
yeah, I know, but I want to make sure.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm not policing anyone. So what, no matter what, if you said you're going to be, I mean, you know, you guys had to make a formal decision as whether you're going to be remote or in person, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I will say is if you chose to be in person, you should be, you definitely better be in lab. Again, I'm not going to really cross-reference and tell on anyone. So the answer is, please come to the live lab sessions.
Oh, yeah.
If you can't for some reason, like I said, we'll talk about it individually. But yeah, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think we went over this. But how do I figure out which lab I'm in?
Look at your schedule. If you go on self-serve and look at your schedule, it'll show you whether you're in Tuesday lab or Thursday lab.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you got it. Anyone else have any other questions?
No, but thank you for the time.
Thanks. Bye.